used to have a lot of fun with playing with the other kids and being outdoors at recess time, you know, and
on Sweet Pond Road.
tossing balls at each other sometimes, and sometimes running. Yeah, and probably quite a lot of other things that I don't remember. But no, I went the first year in first grade over in Guilford Center School, which was a one-room schoolhouse, and then went here for 5 years and a half, I think it was. Then they were going to close the school, so then we went to the West Brattleboro, well, where the fire station is now. The school was there, so we went there till we was 8th grade and graduated.
I don't know.
Yeah, there was only a few I remember that were, you know, the youngest ones. Maybe 4 or 5 of them, and then the rest of us were older.
What years did you go to school here?
1939 to 1944, I think it was.
And what's your name, please?
My name is Sadie Coleman Kenny. I was born right down by the brook, up here by the blacksmith shop.
Did you go to this school?
I did.
What year did you go?
Haven't any idea. I used to come and start the fire. At one time when we had the hot meals, there was always a couple of us older ones that could go in the well, it was a back room, and that's where, and we had an oil stove, and that's where we heated up the soup, whatever we were having. And I enjoyed that. It got me out of school. Got me out of classes.
Did you go through 8th grade here?
Yeah. I graduated.
Did you go to this school, Ben? No. You did?
I
No?
I got to tell you a story.
Sure, I'd love to hear it.
All right. I was famous for
Did he behave himself?
For what?
I was famous for hot temper. Well, a teacher and I were having an argument over something.
Oh, gosh. Well, it's really good to see.
I don't remember now.
Gotta fire up
But anyway,
good coals going.
I got quite hot under the collar. And I said, they were talking about my temper. And I said, well, that was my God-given temper, and what was the point of having it if I didn't use it? And then they brought that up when we had graduation at the Grange Hall. My parents didn't appreciate it, but hey, I didn't mind.
Norman is here somewhere. He's going to be. He came up.
I'm Elizabeth Newton now.
Elizabeth Newton.
I used to be a clerk.
Yeah. And you were a teacher here?
She was teaching school here when I married her.
She was. Busy girl then, weren't you?
I was supposed to be an old maid school teacher.
Lots of big boys then. There were a lot of big boys at one time. And most of them were big boys.
And what did you do here? I mean, what's your connection to the school?
I was a teacher here in 1941 for 1 year. After that, in 42, I had my first baby, Ann. Ann is now a minister. Yeah. I was born at Guilford Springs Farm. Guilford Springs Farm. My dad was caretaker down there. Huh.
Who is this gentleman sitting next to you?
He's my husband of 71 years.
Oh.
You heard of the Robb farm?
Yeah.
The what farm?
Robb.
Oh, sure.
up on Ames Hill.
Yeah.
Well, they were our next door neighbors when I grew up.
Oh, really?
We lived the next place above them. My father dug that cellar hole for the main house on where Charlie Robb lives now. There's, see, Isaac Robb and married Chrissy. I believe she was a Houghton, and they lived there as long as they lived, and they both died there. And one of the boys is running the farm now.
Sad.
How did we meet? Her sisters. I knew them all in high school, but she was in the college course, and I was just a regular course, so I never met her. But I knew Marge and Barbara and all the rest of them, and John and Ruth, and but one day we had a young fellow there that was, I'd been to Randolph, graduated from Randolph, Vermont. That was an ag school in those days. You had a one-year course, and it was strictly agriculture. And I graduated up there with honor, and then I worked here and there, and then I come back home and raised poultry myself, and peddled eggs and dressed hens and broilers and so forth around Brattleboro. My father had a small milk route, so that made customers to start with. And then I met Elizabeth and started raising 2,000 chicks. Half of them were pullets, and I raised the roosters and dressed them off as broilers. Most of them went as broilers, and some of them went as roasters. Toward fall, they got big enough to be roasted chickens, so that's how I got started farming. And then come graduation time, and he said, we're going to have a party over at Spofford Lake, and you've all got to bring a girlfriend. I said, girlfriend? I didn't have any girlfriends. But I did. I ended up asking her to go. Her two sisters were going anyway, to neighbors where she grew up. And anyway, so I asked her, and she said yes. And that was the end of that.
Oh, well, they aren't all here, but the Petries.
I've seen Mary's little lab, but I've never seen her bear. Norman Everett Coleman. I sure did.
What years did you go?
From 1937 to 47. 1937. And we went to West Brattleboro Academy when I was in the 7th or 8th grade. The mischief that I would get into.
That's what I want to hear about. Let's hear it. What kind of mischief?
All right. Akeley would bring her children in a buggy, and I was experimenting with matches in a cap. I fired off and spooked the horse, and they made me. My punishment was to being underneath the piano for 3 weeks. I had all my books and everything was under the piano. That was my punishment. I couldn't come out until the end of 3 weeks.
Were you a good student?
No, it was awful. I couldn't sit still.
What did you rather be doing?
Oh, be outside. And I can remember learning to ride the bicycle out here in the yard. And we went right straight down, right over the bank, right down into the ditch. I got a little story.
Let's hear it.
Was walking along. This was before asphalt roads. And I come up to an old guy and I said, "Is this the road to Fairfax?" "I don't know." "How far is it to Fairfax?" "I don't know." "You don't know much, do you?" He says, "I don't know much, but I'm not lost."
I saw the. Is that what they did? They saw. Yep. Well, I saw Betty sign in. I was here earlier.
I'm Eleanor Coleman Emery. I went to school here in 1933 to 1941, all 8 grades. My 8th grade year, I was the janitor here. I would get up in the morning, come over and build the fire, and then after school I would sweep the floor, wash the blackboards. But no, it was a good 8 years.
Was it a paid job? Did you earn a few pennies?
I believe I got $4 for the year. One of the up-and-coming ones. I struggled, but that's okay. I made it.
How does it make you feel being in this old building today?
I have found out that this room has shrunk over the years, because when I was here, it was a big room. Only probably 15 or 20 students when I was here. There were more after I left in 1941. But
Did it feel crowded to you?
no, it wasn't crowded. We sat in our desks and kept our mouths shut and did as we were told. If we wanted to talk, we raised our hand. It's a little different than it is nowadays.
Did it seem chaotic to you to have all 8 grades?
Never, absolutely never. It was just the way of life. That's what was done. The teacher was in charge, and that's it. Yeah, so anyway, good. It was good.
And did you organize this day?
I helped. I was the one who did a lot of telephoning. When I found out what they were doing, I thought, okay, we need to get some former students here. So I did a lot of telephoning, but it was fun.
Yeah, how far away did they come? Where did they come from?
Well, there's some here from Maine. My brother came from Florida. I think there's someone else coming from up the northern part of the state and everything. Yes, yeah.
So it's real important to people, and they showed up.
I believe so. Yes, yeah.
It's still the same. Norm Coleman.
Oh, for God's sake.
Charles.
Yeah, Charlie Sniffen. Your name?
And
I thought that was yours. Charlie Sniffen.
You are?
Yeah.
I'll be goddamn.
How you doing,
Well,
guys?
hoping you'd come down.
Good to see
Yeah.
you. Good to see you.
Yeah. Huh. Small world.
It
where
is, isn't it?
and it's,
Yeah.
So this is a reunion of people who haven't seen each other for many years?
Yeah, don't recognize each other either.
What is
They
your
changed a tad.
Charlie Sniffen, for God's sake. Yes, there's the face. Joy Hayes.
Eva Line.
I was stuck up
Oh, I can't remember when I came.
Remember the year that you graduated?
you know, there
Yeah,
and I was young and there was
1937,
Class of 37 from high school or from grammar school?
grammar school.
Do you remember your teachers?
Yes, Miss Chamberlain,
Miss Chamberlain was your first?
in New York City.
Miss Campbell,
There about a year, and I said,
Miss Campbell, Miss Notmeyer, Miss Nichols.
well, good to see you.
I guess that's all I had.
Wow, they all just stayed for 2 years? And how many kids were in a class? In a classroom?
There was, I don't remember that, but I think there were about 16. And we walked from the line farm to here.
How far is that?
It's about 2 miles.
Wow, that's a lot when you were a little kid.
That's
12 years
right.
old.
My sister used to hold my hand, and we'd bring our lunch. And it was fun, I guess.
How long was the school day? It went from when to when?
From 9 o'clock until 3:30.
Like today.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember any good stories?
I was full of the devil, but I don't remember any. We used to walk up to the well up in the field and bring back a gallon jug of water, leave it out there, and we played Kingsland. That was a game we played.
What's it called?
Kingsland.
And did they used to shovel or plow the path so that you could get to school, or did you have to walk through snow up to your chest?
We waited in the snow. Yeah.
You waded through the snow?
Yeah. But from the farm, the line farm, which was my folks, I walked to the house, the schoolhouse, and then we came in, sat by the fire. Miss Campbell used to say, Helen and Eva Line will sit by the fire. So we did. Our desks were pulled up there, and we sat by the fire every day in the wintertime. Yeah.
And how close to the stove did you have to get warm?
Oh, until we could feel it, anyway. Yeah.
Now, are you the oldest alumni here today?
I'm next to the oldest. Helen Line was my sister, older sister. And then there was me, and then there was Grace, and then there was Doris, and then there was Kenneth, and Maury, and Carl, all my family. I'm 91. In the wintertime, my teacher let me climb up there. There was a banjo-like clock up there.
What was up there?
Like a banjo clock, one of the old style. And she'd let me climb up there and put my sandwich that I had carried from Guilford to here, warm. And every day she let me go and get my sandwich warm. Yeah.
you are. Do go up Carpenter.
Yeah, Pete Wild, or Charles P. Wild, but I've always been called Pete. Went here 6 years, and then they started moving us around to other schools as they were getting ready to close these. So I went here just 6.
Now, why did they close it?
Oh, they were building a consolidated school in Guilford Center.
Are you a selectman now?
No, I was for several years, but
Well,
not now.
Did you go to school here 8 years, did you say?
6.
6 years. And when was the last year you were here?
6th grade. I don't know, I made it. I passed. I was hoping one of our teachers is going to be here today. Esther Brewster Smith, but I haven't seen her yet.
Oh, Brutus. Esther Brutus Smith.
And when did you teach here?
1943, I think.
So that was like right...
During World War II. World War II.
And how many kids did you have? teachers?
I think there were 17 students made up of about 4 families.
And you taught all subjects?
All grades, from grade 1 through grade 8.
Now, how did you handle it when you're teaching first graders how to read and 8th graders, I don't know, geography?
Well, we were, students helped each other. That's the way you ran a rural school.
Now, is that the actual desk that you sat at?
It could be. It was in the back of the room. I lived with the Wilds.
Oh, okay.
And the first person I met here was Peter Wild, one of my students. But I lived with his parents.
Did you have trouble keeping the kids in line?
I don't remember because they all treated me with respect, even though I wasn't much older than they, like the 8th grade boys. But I don't remember ever having to discipline anybody, but they would play jokes on me, like putting frogs in the desk and things like that. I was probably 21. I always remember one little first grade girl who was so shy. She was the youngest of a huge family. They were all in the school. And I just remember that she was so shy that you could never engage her in conversation. She practically didn't talk. But I did teach her to read. And so I always remember that.
Do you remember her name?
Yes, I do. Eleanor Bell.
What I heard was all the older boys fell in love with that stuff.
Believe it.
Oh, Barbara Ferragoni. Maury Line. That must be the old Maury.
This is, I think that
Young
must be
Maury.
Young Maury.
Here, West Guilford.
We moved there 56 years ago.
And you were good friends with Homer Thomas?
Pardon?
You were good friends with Homer Thomas?
Sure was.
He was your buddy, huh?
You better believe it.
And when did you get elected to the Senate?
Oh, I don't know.
Long time ago.
A long time ago. I was in the House for 12 years and in the Senate for 2, and then I was on the governor's staff after that. But it's we thought it would be a great place to bring up the kids, and that was the year they opened the big school where it is now, and of course they closed this one, and some of the rest of them around town, they're all closed. And
Homer Thomas bought this school for the church, right?
yeah,
When they closed it?
yeah. Well, he didn't. He and Bertha, especially Homer, wanted to make sure someone wouldn't buy it for a house, and he thought it's right on the church grounds and it ought to go to the church. So they purchased it and then they deeded it over to the church. So I don't know how the deed reads, I haven't seen it, but I know that they deeded it over. And that's his legacy. It won't be a house anyways, you know, or someone living in it. There's no place to park. There's only the ground that it sets on anyway, so.
He was quite a guy.
Huh?
Homer was quite a guy.
Oh yeah, he was quite a guy. He almost didn't make it, you know. Did you ever hear the story about he was sawing wood, and back in those days they didn't have regular bearings in the shaft, so forth. They had wooden bearings, and evidently one of them broke and it cut him right open all the way up through. And he had a little scar on his face too. I never noticed it. I guess we thought it was just a wrinkle that went along with it. But Bertha was right on the job. She grabbed some towels and put it in some salt water and stuffed it into his cavity and so forth. And I don't know how they got him to town, whether it was horse and buggy or what, but they had the hospital open in West Brattleboro in those days there, which is now our apartment house, and they sewed him up and so forth, and he made it. Homer farmed some. He had Guernsey cattle, and he farmed, and he also took on Farm Bureau insurance, and that's what kept him alive for a while, you know.
Well, that was your business too, wasn't it?
Yes, he's the one that talked me into it. And of course they changed their name to Nationwide, and then it became Nationwide Insurance, which it is today. So I guess maybe his hired man, he's kind of tongue-tied, and they always had Saturday night suppers here at the Hitchcock, and it was always chicken pie. That's what they had. And he was, I can't remember his name, but he was a little tongue-tied. And he'd say, "It's time to go to the chicken pie supper."
It's towards Susan's house on Lucy's land, and there are like a bunch of big maples there, and I would just lay there and I'd watch them just overhead. Hey, Bill.
I'm a neighbor of the Borax. We're too many.
So how many former students do you have here,
Oh, there's Benjamin and Howard Bell, and Peter and Fern Wild, Charlie Sniffen, that's 5. Albert Lines, I don't think Kenny's here. 7. Norman, Sadie. I think there's probably about 12.
Former.
Oh, my name is Joy.
Joy?
J-O-Y. Hayes. H-A-Y-E-S.
And when were you in this school? In
45 through 47. What happened was, in 45, right after the war ended, there was a great influx. The Akeley girls, and I don't see any of them here, the Sniffins, us.
So 45.
In 45, Mrs. DeAngelis, Johnny DeAngelis, you know, Armedio DeAngelis, the sign down in Brattleboro, up over, well, it used to be the Dutch Bake Shop. Now I think it's been a bicycle shop. That man's son, Johnny DeAngelis, married the woman who started teaching in 45. Now she was promised a population in the school no more than 12 kids, and no more than 3 or 4 grades were represented, because that was what happened in the school year 44. But after the war, everybody was getting away from centers of population, the first to the back to the landers, because everybody was afraid there was going to be a bomb dropped on New York in retaliation for Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You know, head for the hills was kind of the watchword of 45. And a lot of GIs got out of the military, and they had money in their pocket. And we bought our place for back taxes, because it'd been empty since the crash of 29.
Right here in West Guilford?
Yeah. Right up on that mountain over there. My parents bought in 45. Well, that September, there were probably 25 kids showed up, twice as many, and all 8 grades were represented. I think that teacher was ready to go back home. So, as a result,
this is good stuff.
As a result of that, the school was just overrun, and they couldn't get a teacher, and they couldn't keep a teacher, and so they decided this community decided to transport the 7th and 8th grade into Academy.
Okay.
The old Academy.
Right.
That was a white clapboard building by what's now in the Westby Fire Station in that neighborhood. So the parents did a kind of, what would you call it? Sharing rides, taking kids in to 7th and 8th grade, and
Okay.
many chose not to go.
Hmm.
They just stopped in the 6th and said they were needed on the farm.
Hmm.
But I guess my folks decided I wasn't farm work material, and they said, well, you better go to school. So I did.
And so, I mean, so is it safe to say 45 was the most
Yeah, 45,
busy
46,
time around
yeah.
here, huh?
And yeah, that was when all us newcomers.
Right. And then the school closed soon after that, right?
When they built the central school in the
Right,
early
57,
50s,
I
yeah,
think Don said 57.
something like that. The school closed,
Uh-huh.
and they built the Guilford Central School.
Right.
Homer Thomas owned the school property, and Homer, I think, gave it or sold it for $1 to the Baptist Church because the Baptist Church would have a caretaker, and Howard Bell is the caretaker, of this property.
I see. What's it like for you to see these old schoolmates and the church open and the school open and?
Well, it's very nostalgic.
Uh-huh.
I haven't seen Albert Lines since we were both in the 8th grade at Academy.
Wow. So when you see someone you haven't seen since 8th grade, did you recognize each other?
I did.
You did,
Well, I
huh?
recognized him,
Uh-huh.
but I had to tell him my name.
Okay. You recognize him now. How do you, I mean, with all due respect, as a woman
doesn't-
your age, I mean, do you look in the eyes, or how do you remember someone from?
Well, there's a bell looks like a bell, and a line looks like a line. There's certain characteristics, and the wild looks like a wild, and a baker looks like a baker, and there she is, Adele Baker. Well, her last name's Hall. Yeah, and a Coleman looks like a Coleman.
That's just,
that's
it's
what
in
they
your
look
DNA,
like.
huh?
I guess. Well, we were children together.